So Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare is, well, it was marketed as the final installment in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. That aged well, because there's three more after this one. Well, no, two more after this one. But this one is probably the worst one as well, which is kind of sad because, for the movie that was supposed to be the last one, it kind of sucks that it's probably the worst one besides the remake. And yeah, this one follows a group of teens. They attempt to stop Freddy once and for all. However, this time his real life daughter is there to stop him as well. So let's get into it. So the story begins in the town of Springwood, Ohio, where Freddy Krueger has successfully eliminated almost every child and teenager, except for one. This guy is only known as John Doe, and he has amnesia, he can't remember his name, past, how he survived, anything. And he suffers from recurring nightmares of Freddy, and he soon finds himself at a youth shelter in a nearby town. At the shelter, Dr. Maggie, who is, Freddy's daughter, is a therapist, and she works with the troubled youth. She becomes intrigued by John Doe's situation, and she has strange dreams of her own, where pretty much it's just her as a kid, and you never see her dad, but you always hear a scream coming from the basement, which is where he keeps all his fun little murder weapons. And yeah, well, she's Freddy's daughter, okay. So she doesn't realise her own connection to Freddy, but she decides to take John to Springwood in hopes of uncovering his identity and addressing his trauma to help free him, I guess. Once they arrive in Springwood, though, they realise, hey, everyone's stowed away on the van, so they may as well come with as well. But yeah, they encounter a bizarre atmosphere there, where all the adults pretty much lost their minds because there are no kids there. Like, it's wild. But yeah, the other kids also went with them because they were tired of being trapped in a youth shelter, so after becoming trapped in the town, though, they soon encounter Freddy and realise they become his new targets. Freddy hunts them one by one. Each character faces personalised nightmare scenarios. Carlos, who is hearing impaired, he's tortured with a hearing aid when it's put in his ear, and then Freddy replaces his hearing aid with a weird little thing, which when he drops even the smallest little pin and it makes noise, his head explodes, and it's honestly a pretty cool kill. I just wish it wasn't in this garbage movie. Moving on from there, though, Maggie uncovers more about Freddy's past. She learns that Freddy had a traumatic childhood. He suffered abuse from his bullying, stepdad, even though bro just stood there and took it. I think he was the one who was probably doing something to the dad, I won't lie. But bro was just stood there he was being beat with a, belt. So, I think he was always a psychopath, especially after you know his origins. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much just Freddy's world here. Welcome to his world. Because, we also see Spencer, who loves video games, and he's drawn to a video game world where Freddy controls his movements and eventually killing him killing him in the game. And yeah, during these events, Maggie learns more and more. To her shock, though, she learns that Freddy was adopted and eventually became a father. Ooh. And then she discovers that Freddy is her biological dad. That's right. Gonna have a long conversation with her parents after this one. Why didn't you tell me my dad was a serial killer? And there's also Dream Demon serial killer now. Come on, guys, give me something here. Yeah, so now that she's armed with this knowledge, she returns to the youth shelter in an attempt to put an end to her father's reign of terror. She learns that Freddy was granted his dream-controlling powers by dream demons, which, no joke, look like floating sperm. That's the best way I can describe these little dudes. They're just floating around like they're in a ball sack, just doing their thing. Yeah, they're supernatural entities that granted him the ability to kill in dreams and survive after death. Ooh, spooky. Yeah, so now that she realises that Freddy's power only exists in the dream world, that just reminds me of Bong World from Evil Bong. Frankly, I think Bong World was better. I'd prefer to go to Bong World than Dream World. Sure, your soul is eternally trapped in Bong World, but you just sit there and get high all day. That's so much better than being killed by Freddy Krueger. Yeah, once she realises that Freddy's powers only exist in Dream World, she plans to bring him into the real world and destroy him. In the climactic showdown, because the finale of this movie was made for 3D, Maggie dons the special 3D glasses and goes into Freddy's mind, where we see like this tube, which was in the last few movies, which just looks like the inside of an arse. And yeah, while she's going through that and Freddy's mind, she sees more memories from his childhood, adolescence, and his transformation into the dream-stalking killer he is now. And we even see the moment when the little sperm dudes went inside of Freddy and gave him his dream powers. And yeah, with the help of Tracy and Doc, though, a dream specialist from the shelter who can control his dreams, she's able to kill Freddy in a brutal hand-to-hand fight, and she manages to grab a hold of a pipe and blow him up pretty much. Yeah, it's kind of a boring ending for Freddy Krueger. I mean, actually no, he does come back 3 times after this. I forgot about Freddy vs. Jason. What happened there? Did they just forget about this movie? You know, I agree with them. We should forget about this movie. I'm going to after this, but like, Freddy vs. Jason, guys, come on, please. And yeah, just before the bomb detonates, Freddy is momentarily stunned, and it gives Maggie time to escape. But yeah, so they watch Freddy's demonic spirit finally dissolve as the little sperm guys do their little swim around. Yeah, Freddy's dead. This is how the iconic Freddy Krueger dies. He gets blown up by a pipe bomb. Not even something cool in a dream, just blown up. I mean, it's better than being sucked into your mum's urethra like in the 5th movie, but like, give us something. Yeah, this movie definitely veers into new territory for the franchise. This is probably the most funny Freddy has been. And I say that with quotation marks because it's really just pain. It's like camp comedy, which I despise because it's just unfunny. Yeah, it feels like a parody of itself. Freddy just has so many terrible one-liners, and it feels more like a scary movie parody or like Stan Helsing version of Freddy than like actual Freddy. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if like directly after this movie, Robert Englund just jumped on that movie and was like, yeah, let me shine a lady's tits in this next movie. And it's just like, okay, good for you. He doesn't, of course. He doesn't play him because I don't think they would afford anyone for that movie. That movie sucks, but like, this movie isn't very much better. Yeah, you know, Robert Englund, he does remain like entertaining as Freddy. He's much more of a comic villain rather than terrifying in this movie. He's got cartoonish death sequences that are pretty much just slapstick at this point. And despite its odd tone, there are a few redeeming qualities. I like the bit about Freddy's backstory. You learn a bit more. So, let me just piece this together right here. Freddy's backstory is that his mum was assaulted by 100 men at the same time, and then she gave birth to a demon spawn baby that was given to a abusive stepfather who then beats him, and then he became a serial killer. Then he married and had a kid. Then he was killed by a bunch of parents, and then little sperm dudes entered him and made him a dream demon. Okay, smash that right there. Yeah, the supporting cast in this movie as well, they all struggle with the comedy. Like, I think Maggie's alright, but I just want to know, what the hell happened to Alice? She was literally our final girl for, I don't know what I was saying, 5 movies. 2 movies, and then we just forget about her? She was, like, the whole core of, like, that whole, like, Dream trilogy, besides the first one in the franchise there. I don't get it. You know, like, this is, like, just killing off Nancy in, like, the 3rd one. Why? She didn't even die. We just never hear from her again. Like, at least bring it. Could they not afford to bring her back? I mean, they did the same thing with Patricia Arquette, but just recast her at that point. Like, we don't need Freddy's daughter who just comes out of bloody nowhere. Like, I like the bit of, like, origin for Freddy, but besides from that, I hate this movie. It sucks. And yeah, ultimately, this is an odd and often divisive entry in the franchise. It doesn't really reach the levels of scare of the earlier films. Like, I think the OG is pretty terrifying at some points, and Wes Craven's New Nightmare is terrifying as well at some points. But this just sucks. Like, for being the final chapter, this is like sort of the final chapter. This ain't the final chapter, there's like 3 movies after it. And it's also not the best. But there's only like one redeeming thing about it. Well, I mean, there's a few redeeming things about that movie. It has my favourite vocalist, Chester Bennington, in it. This one, though, this is just terrible. Like, just scrape this out of my memory. I'm never watching this again. I only watched it to review. I mean, the other night I did a thing with Davey Defray where we just made fun of the 2010 Nightmare remake, so I might bring him on to talk about this movie at some point as well. Let me know if you guys want to see that, because I really dislike this one as well. It's not the best, but the 3D elements are so corny. The jokes are terrible. There's some parts that make you laugh. Ultimately, I think it's kind of bad though. I do give it like a 4 out